All right, welcome to the Campfire Realignment Preview Special. I'm joined with Jon Poorman from the Houston Chronicle. Jon, Realignment Day, man, it's one of the best days of the year, at least for football fans, especially football fans, but all sports fans, but mainly football because you get to see who you're going to compete against for the next 2 years. I know coaches are very excited about it as well. Let's talk about 6A, what we think may happen in 6A. When you talk about 6A Region 2, for the past couple of years, I don't see too terribly much changing up north. To me, it seems like the Conroes and Woodlands, Kleins, Aldians, and Springs will be together. What do you think about the Region 2 type districts? We've had 4 of them last year. We'll probably have 4 again this year for Houston area. How do you feel?
I really don't see much different happening there. I guess the one thing that's somewhat interesting here is that Caney Creek is moving up to 6A from 5A D1. I'd be shocked if they're not with the rest of the Conroe ISD schools in Willis. I mean, that just kind of makes sense. That was a 6-team district the past 2 years, and then you add Caney Creek to make it 7. That just seems like a natural fit there, almost a guarantee, I think. But yeah, I mean, you go down the line here, you look at the Klein schools, obviously them with Tomball and Waller makes sense. As you mentioned, Aldine with Spring ISD schools, and then you have the big Cypress district as well. Really don't see much changing here as far as Region 2 goes for the Houston area.
I was going to say, and when you dip into Region 3, a lot of people talk about the Cy-Fair district and how they can find a way to get all the Cy teams together. I think that's impossible, but the 2-team district thing is probably the way it's going to be, isn't it? What you think? Not 2-team, but 2 districts that have Cy-Fair Cy teams split all over the place.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's really no other way to do it. There's just too many of these Cy-Fair schools, which is it's really exciting because they have a chance to compete against some other schools. The one in the district in Region 2 is all Cypress. It was last realignment anyways. I expect that to be the same. And then, the other one in 17-6, they taken on the likes of, Springwoods and Northbrook and Memorial and Stratford and all of them. I mean, I really don't see too much changing there. It just makes sense. All these teams are solidly in 6A. So not much changing in the way of Cy-Fair ISD, I don't think.
Yeah, I always say that, and UI always tosses some sort of weird curveball in there. But we got a couple interesting teams moving up. Katy Paetow they're pulling Shadow Creek. They win a state title, and then they move up to 6A, so they leave 5A with a bang. And then you got Hightower out of their same district moving up to 6A. I'm assuming those 2 will probably be put in the Katy district and in the Fort Bend district. But what I want to know for you, how do you feel Paetow will compete with the other Katy schools? How interesting would that be? Could they fight for a playoff spot or as the first-year team? And the same with Hightower in the Fort Bend district.
Yeah, Paetow absolutely could compete for a play. I mean, I expect them to. They're defending state champions or reigning state champions now. They won't be defending that 5A D1 title, obviously, moving up to 6A. But now they're with the big boys. They're with Katy, and they're with a bunch of other solid programs here. The thing that gives me confidence in them is they've already created a culture there under Coach BJ Gott, a winning culture for them to go out and claim a state championship in year 4. I mean, there's not too many schools that can do something like that. And also, they're going to have the numbers. They've got over 3,000 kids, as their enrollment number that they turned in December. And so, I completely expect them to challenge not only for a playoff spot, but be right there at the top. Maybe that district comes down to a matchup between them and the Katy Tigers. That'd be super exciting to see for sure. But yeah, I mean, just the way that they've been able to build that culture, that winning culture already, I think that's well established, and I would expect nothing less moving up to 6A now.
How about Hightower over in the Fort Bend district? I know Ridge Point's kind of stomped their foot down there as the team to beat, but talk about what you think they may do there.
Yeah, Ridge Point definitely has established itself as the team to beat over the last several years here. But yeah, Hightower, I mean, obviously they competed well in the same district with Paetow, and and Foster and Angleton and all these, great programs down there in 5AD1. And so I have confidence in them as well. They've established a strong tradition of winning. They always have great athletes. That's not going to change. This is a program that, it has those expectations to compete for a playoff spot. And, you look down the line, you look at this district last year, you had Ridgepoint, but, no one else really jumped out to me as like, oh man, Hightower is going to have trouble competing with them. I really don't see that happening. And so it's not, kind of along the same lines as Pato. I would expect them to compete for a playoff spot next year as well.
Now, it comes to the part where I really want to discuss it. Districts 21 through 24, those are the ones we could see probably the most movement because we have new schools coming up. We got New Caney, Cleveland, Beaumont United. Last year, we mentioned this off air. It was the last 2 years, it was Atascocita with North Shore. But what do you think about them maybe getting split up out of their districts like they were before? And where do you see the Pasadena teams going?
Yeah, I mean, the split between North Shore and Atascocita, the more I think about it, the more it kind of makes sense just geographically, like you said, with United moving up, New Caney moving up, Cleveland moving up to 6A. All of those teams are more in the area of the Humboldt schools. And so it kind of makes sense for them to go that way and then have, North Shore go with the Pasadena schools and CE King, Channelview, Deer Park, those schools kind of on, down more towards their area on the east side of town. So, yeah, I mean, as fun as this rivalry has been between North Shore and Atascocita, that district title came down to them, obviously, the past 2 years, and it's been exciting. But these are two programs that were winning their own separate district titles before. And so, as sad as it is to kind of see that big district matchup go away, I think we might be headed that way.
Yeah, and I used to talk to some coaches in the Pasadena district, the old 22-6A, and they're like, "Yeah, this is great that we got our state title or we got our district title, but man, we got to face Atascocita right off the bat and this and that." And I was like, "Well, now that we think about it, well, now you play them during the district play, so or if that happens, it should be interesting." Let's move down to 5A Division One. You talked about a lot of the teams moving up to 6A, a couple of title contenders moving up to 6A. Well, we got some Division II guys moving up to Division I with the likes of Crosby and Barbers Hill and those likes. And Pasadena actually had moved down, but they opted to stay up in the 6A. So we won't talk about Pasadena, but just talk about how Crosby and Barbers Hill where they may find themselves and how they may compete in Division I.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of interesting with that district they had down there, with Texas City and Barbers Hill and Crosby and in Kingwood Park. We have Barbers Hill, we have Crosby, Kingwood Park, all moving up. And then, I'd be shocked if Porter wasn't in that district as well. At 5AD1, they were they were very, very close to being 6A along with, their district rival New Caney, but they were just under that cutoff number there. So that seems like a natural fit to me with like Kingwood Park, LaPorte, the Baytown schools. I would kind of expect that kind of core nucleus of schools to stick together. And, Crosby the past 2 years has been to the state championship and been in the state semifinals. So, as far as football goes, that'll be the team to beat, but should be a pretty competitive balance, when I kind of look at some of the schools that might be in there.
And you talked about, we talked ad nauseum about how Pato and Hightower move up, but they still got a decent chance of a decent district down there with Manville and Foster probably staying together, and Angleton. I wonder who else will take those spots.
Yeah, two teams that I'm really looking at here, Friendswood, who got a share of their district title this past season, and Fulshire, who made it to the playoffs for the first time in school history. I think that's a real possibility, joining in that district there with, like you said, Angleton and Manville and Foster, Rosenberg, Terry, So I think that you add those two programs to the mix there, even though you lose Pato and Hightower, you still have a pretty competitive district there at the top, and those 4 playoff spots wouldn't be easy to come by if you added Friendswood and a full share to the mix.
Absolutely. Finally, let's talk about 5A Division II. And it looks like we're only going to have 2 districts, to be honest with you, in the Houston area. And poor Marshall's left without much competition. I know Montgomery came up last year, but as far as Houston area competition in Division II 5A, it's Marshall and Montgomery, and then that's about it. Or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that Montgomery district, I don't really see changing too terribly much, although we could get some surprises there. I'm just not really sure what to expect. I know they lost Cleveland, but yeah, I mean, as far as the other district goes, you're looking at Fort Bend Marshall. They'll, as far as football goes, obviously still be the favorites. I think Texas City could very well be in that district. I actually would expect that. And then another interesting note, I think you could definitely get the new high school Randall coming in, the Lamar Consolidated School, Richmond Randall coming into the mix there. They're obviously a new school, so that would add a new little wrinkle there. But I think that, honestly, that district for Marshall is going to be a little bit more competitive than it's been the past. I also don't think that they'll have as many games, because I think the shakeup that you're going to see within Houston ISD is going to take a lot, if not all of those schools out of their district. And so, you're talking about a Marshall team that did not play a single close game during the regular season. And that's, by no fault of their own. They played in a district where they didn't have many non-district games. I think they played 2. And so this will open up the schedule a little bit more for them, just maybe schedule some tougher teams in non-district play just to kind of prep them for the playoffs. As we saw, they've made some great runs in the postseason, playing in weaker districts, but also we saw this year them losing the first round against Barbers Hill. And so I think when you add, a Randall, even though they're a new school, maybe they can be competitive down there. You add a Texas City, who was a playoff team last year. I think that it'll be tougher for the Buffs. Still figure that they'll be, the one to beat, but it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Well, the whole thing is going to be interesting. It all happens next week, Thursday, February 3rd. And it's at 9 o'clock. Everybody's going to be able to see their districts, where they're at, who they need to find non-district games against, if they have to find a bunch, if they have to dump a few. But we're going to be back here next Thursday at noon. It's going to be me, you, and Ashley Bullington. We're going to be bringing on coaches, and we're going to discuss everything that happened realignment, what shockers may have happened, how we'll talk to coaches about how they may navigate their new district and where they think they'd be. So it's going to be pretty exciting next Thursday. Y'all tune in, all our social media networks. It's going to be at noon, and we will have everything in realignment with my main man, Jon Poorman.